In the vast Marvel universe, many families show immense power, but there is one family that stands out for its extraordinary combination of intelligence, strength, and legacy. This is the lesser-known and yet incredibly influential family tree of Charles Xavier. Have you ever pondered the origins of the X-Men's father and the extent of his lineage? Well, that's exactly what we'll explore in this episode. Since his introduction in 1963, Charles Xavier's family tree has undergone significant expansion. It has unveiled a ton of connections through his relationships and unexpected characters from his past. This family's growth plays a key role in the Marvel Universe's X-Men and beyond. In this detailed episode, we'll explore the expanding Xavier family tree and uncover the complex connections and characters that play crucial roles in numerous storylines. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Dr. Brian Xavier, father. I bet you didn't know that Professor Xavier's father, Dr. Brian Xavier, played a big role in shaping the founder of the X-Men. He was a rich scientist in the field of nuclear science and was married to Sharon Xavier. He was one of the minds behind the Manhattan Project during the Second World War. Yeah, you heard that right. Brian had his hands on the world's first A-bomb. What most of us didn't know is that he also collaborated with other brilliant minds of the century at Project Black Womb. This was a secret initiative by the government. It was led by Amanda Mueller and assisted by the evil Mr. Sinister, who was a top geneticist. Project Black Womb studied hundreds of children, but mostly mutant children who were held in postnatal tanks. Shortly, Dr. Xavier and Sharon welcomed a son named Charles Xavier, and also had a stillborn child named Xandra Nova. Tragically, Dr. Xavier met his end in an accidental blast at an experimental facility. Despite his father's limited presence in his life, Dr. Xavier's actions had a big impact on Charles. He inherited a large amount of wealth and the family estate, too. It's noteworthy that Charles's father wasn't a mutant, but rather a mortal human with no powers. Nevertheless, let's not overlook that he was a genius in his own right. As a brilliant scientist, he passed on his highly intelligent genetic makeup to his son. Imagine a scenario where Charles Xavier was dumb as a rock and might never have started the school for the gifted. This simply means that there might not have been an X-Men team. Sharon Xavier Marco. Mother. Sharon Xavier was the wife of a nuclear researcher, Dr. Brian Xavier. They lived at the Xavier Mansion estate in Westchester County, New York, which was later turned into the School for the Gifted. When she was pregnant, Sharon carried twins, Charles Xavier and Xandra Nova. Out of the two, Xandra was an evil spirit. Charles could sense this due to Cassandra's evil presence in the womb. He made an attempt and used his infant psychic abilities to eliminate her, and this led to Sharon's miscarriage. Although she was pronounced stillborn, meaning she was dead at birth, Xandra survived. She spent decades growing up in a sewer wall to plot revenge on Charles. That is way too dramatic for a comic book, but it's interesting, so we'll let that pass. After Dr. Xavier's accidental death, his colleague Dr. Kurt Marco confronted Sharon. He convinced her that Charles desperately needed a father figure. Sharon married Dr. Marco against Charles's wishes, who became rich through his new wife's inheritance. However, all Dr. Marco cared about was the money and not Sharon. This led to neglect and abuse for the widowed mother and her son. Charles soon discovered Dr. Marco's true intentions through his telepathic powers. He linked minds with his mother to share the abuse and relieve her from suffering. However, Sharon was driven to alcoholism by neglect and abuse and eventually died of anguish. This left Charles with his stepfather and abusive stepbrother, Cain Marco. Dr. Kurt Marco, stepfather. Dr. Kurt Marco was also a nuclear scientist just like Charles's real father. He sent his son Cain to boarding school after separating from his wife Marjorie Marco. Sometime during their career, Dr. Brian Xavier, who was a dear colleague of his, died in an accident at a nuclear facility blast. Dr. Marco comforted Brian's widow Sharon Xavier with his presence. He tried to fill the void left by Brian. He succeeded in his task and they eventually got married. This move wasn't emotional, but rather a greedy one. It made Dr. Marco vastly wealthy due to Sharon's inheritance. Marco was a man who liked productive people around him. He eventually ended up favoring Sharon's gentle and disciplined son, Charles, over his own. This led to Cain bullying Charles throughout his childhood. Charles quickly noticed Dr. Marco's interest in Sharon's wealth and his increasing neglect. This led to her developing a substance addiction and eventually her death. During an argument, Kane accused Dr. Marco of involvement in Dr. Xavier's accidental death. Boy, Marco's a serious player. In a fiery confrontation, Kane unintentionally caused a chemical explosion in Dr. Marco's lab. Dr. Marco faced some serious wounds and sacrificed himself to save Charles and Kane. In his final words, he requested Charles to keep his powers hidden from Kane. I guess he knew his boy better. Despite this noble act, Kane overheard about Charles's abilities, and it led to resentment and started a violent rivalry between the stepbrothers. Xandra Nova, twin sister. Xandra Nova Xavier is a Shiar Mumadre and counterpart to Professor Charles Xavier. She survived gestation despite being initially considered death at birth. Charles had made an attempt to eliminate her with his psychic powers that resulted in their mother's miscarriage. However, she grew up in the form of a few cells in a sewer wall with a plan of revenge against her brother. Xandra constructed a new body that took her over a few decades. Upon emerging, she discovered a secret wild master mold in the South American jungles that possessed the ability to adapt technology into lethal sentinel forms. Xandra put her evil mind to work and convinced Donald Trask III to join her. She activated the master mold using Donald's voice-activated codes and led to a genocidal massacre over 16 million mutants in Genosha. Boy, I knew test tube babies were evil. Xandra later joined the mutant nation of Krakoa and the Marauders. However, she faced criticism from Cape Pride for the Genosha massacre. Later, in a time travel incident, Xandra weakened the bacteria siblings to free a prehistoric mutant civilization called Threshold. However, she was soon ambushed by the Marauders, which left her stranded somewhere in the web of times. Being Charles's sister, Xandra possessed telepathy comparable to him or even beyond. Xandra gained vast psychic powers by copying his DNA, including telepathy, telekinesis, and astral projection, along with the abilities of an average Mumadre. Kane Marco, aka Juggernaut, stepbrother. Kane Marco was also known as Juggernaut. He is a long-standing opponent and occasional ally of the X-Men, and specifically Wolverine. He faced regular abuse from his alcoholic father in his childhood. While his stepbrother Charles Xavier was treated better, his excellence in studies and sports further fueled Kane's long-standing hatred for Xavier. During their service in the U.S. military in Korea, Marco and Xavier found a mystical cave that housed the Temple of Sidorak. Kane hastily touched a glowing ruby that he encountered in the cave. He was instantly transformed into the Juggernaut with immense strength and invulnerability. Juggernaut survived and dug himself free even after being buried under tons of rocks during a cave-in. He confronted the previous Juggernaut, Jin Teiko, and killed him and slaughtered Teiko's village to gain the full power of the Crimson Gem. Years later, Juggernaut went to America to fulfill his dream of killing Xavier and unleashed his newfound powers. In a battle at Xavier's old home, the X-Men were initially helpless against him. However, the Human Torch arrived and assisted them in removing Juggernaut's helmet. Soon after, Professor Xavier sent Juggernaut into a coma and locked him in the mansion's basement. During an attempt to remove Juggernaut's powers, Factor 3 intervenes and revives him temporarily, using Professor X's telepathic abilities. After a brief defeat of the X-Men, Juggernaut was lured by Factor 3 and sent to the Crimson Cosmos of the Crimson Gem of Sidorak. His powers are pretty clear and brutal. Juggernaut possesses immense strength, capable of tearing down buildings and causing shockwaves by hitting the ground. Lilandra Neramani, ex-wife. Princess Magistrix Lilandra Neramani was born into the royal family of the Shiar Empire. Her brother, the unstable Deen, wanted to take over the power of the Macron crystal. However, he wasn't aware of the dangers of the crystal's immense powers. Lilandra took a stand for the people and disagreed with Deen's plans. As a result of the Mad King's orders, she was arrested. But she wasn't one to give up without a fight. She soon began searching the cosmos for assistance. Her journey led her to Earth, where she encountered Professor Charles Xavier. However, their meeting was cut short when a Shiar agent captured Lilandra and transported her and the X-Men to the location of the Macron crystal. During their adventure, Lilandra and Xavier grew closer, so close that they got into a romantic relationship. After Lilandra rebelled against Deen, the Shiar High Council eventually decided in her favor. They declared that she was the rightful ruler of the Empire. Shortly, Lilandra and Xavier headed to the Shiar throne world to lead the Empire together. However, their newfound happiness was short-lived. An unexpected guest was waiting for them, the evil Xandra Nova. She seized control over Lilandra's mind and body and manipulated the Shiar Imperial Guard. Xandra orchestrated an attack on the X-Men too. The intense psychic strain on Lilandra caused her to mistakenly target Xavier, thinking he was Xandra. Members of Professor X's X-Corporation foiled Lilandra's plot, resulting in the annulment of her marriage to Xavier, and she returned to her people. Throughout her journey, Lilandra showed limited telepathic abilities, particularly in connection with Professor Xavier, though the full extent of these powers remained unclear. David Haller, son. David Haller, or Legion, is the son of Professor Charles Xavier and Gabriel Haller. He was born a mutant with some crazy abilities. Xavier was completely unaware of David's existence, and he discovered his paternity pretty late. It's said that David's mutant powers were engineered by Daddy Xavier and Maura McTaggart. While living in Paris with his mother, he experienced a traumatic event when terrorists attacked their home. This led to the awakening of his psionic powers. The event left him in a state of shock, and the mind of Jamal Karami, one of the attackers, merged with David's. He is an Omega-level mutant and can create mutations with various attributes. His immense powers and mental instability resulted in the emergence of multiple personalities. It's said that David has 200 Omega-level split personalities. Rogue was once linked to David, and she observed the continuous evolution of various powers within him. David's identity disorder was the reason for his stepfather's death. This further resulted in the formation of 3 initial alters, each possessing unique psychic powers: telekinesis, telepathy, and pyrokinesis. Over time, the number of alters has expanded, possibly thousands, with each possessing a unique power. Lilandra Neramani, daughter. Following the deaths of Professor X and Lilandra, their genetic material was used to create a child named Xandra. Cerise, a caretaker, protected the egg and sang to it. However, he was captured by the Imperial Guard, but safeguarded the egg to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. Gambit and Rogue were assigned to retrieve the egg, leading to a confrontation with Deadpool. During the battle, the egg cracked and a younger Rogue emerged. Soon she learned about her origin and explored the memories of Gambit and Rogue. They faced an attack from Deathbird, who sought to use Xandra's powers in her battle. However, Gambit and Deadpool ruined the attack but couldn't keep Xandra safe, and she was captured by Nightside. Later, Nightside took her to the Shiar Empire to proceed with her plans. Gambit and Rogue infiltrated the Empire to give her a hard time and successfully retrieved Xandra. Boy, poor Xandra can't catch a break. They escaped using her powers and disguised themselves as members of the Imperial Guard. Soon reunited with Cerise and joined by the Starjammers, they faced another attack. However, Xandra and Rogue together created an illusion, making others believe they exploded, allowing them to escape. Xandra is considered an Omega-level weapon. She inherited telepathic abilities from her genetic father and can read, control, and manipulate thoughts. Xandra can also interact with the astral plane and create realistic telepathic illusions. She can also implant large amounts of information into others' minds. Charles Xavier II, son. Xavier is much like his father, Charles Xavier. He possesses deadly psychic abilities with expertise in both defensive and offensive telepathy. His natural skills allow him to not only interact, but influence and manipulate the minds of others. This includes reading thoughts, launching telepathic attacks, and even accessing the astral plane. We cannot say that his powers match those of Xavier's. He successfully blocked the powerful telepathy of a young Jean Grey and demonstrated an insane amount of control, of course, by using Cerebro to locate individuals. Unlike his father's kindness, Xavier prefers and excels in mind control. He demonstrated his capacity to control all members of the Brotherhood simultaneously. Moreover, he possesses skilled telekinetic abilities, which means he's able to levitate and manipulate objects with his thoughts. Despite his insane powers, Xavier is recognized as less powerful than his father at the peak, and Reyes points out a potential vulnerability to the Phoenix Force. Xavier Neramani. Xavier Neramani is also known as Deathbird. She is a Shiar mutant, born with avian features including wings. Once, she was the eldest child of the Shiar royal house, but she lost her title after murdering her mother and sister in a fit of rage. This led to her exile from the Empire. Xavier took on the name Deathbird and plotted to reclaim the power. Her desire for revenge created a rivalry with her sister Lilandra, who later became the Majestrix of the Shiar Empire. Xavier was trapped on Earth and initially battled Miss Marvel. but later aligned herself with the Brood to seize the throne on Chandalar. Over the years, Deathbird clashed with the X-Men and defended Lilandra's empire. Eventually, she reluctantly became an advisor to Lilandra's daughter, Empress Xandra, and forged an uneasy alliance with the X-Men to protect Xandra. Being from the Shiar race, Deathbird possesses an enhanced strength, endurance, and sharp-clawed nails capable of cutting through steel. She can fly at speeds up to 63 miles per hour for a maximum of 6 hours, and carrying up to 330 pounds. Her wings resemble sharp spurs and can be used as weapons in flight. Lilandra Neramani, former brother-in-law. Lilandra Neramani is a member of the Shiar Empire's royal family. Yeah, he's the Mad King we discussed in Lilandra's story, so he became a jester after denying his sister Deathbird's claim to the throne. Lilandra abducted a human named Christopher Summers for unknown reasons. However, this Earthling sought revenge and failed to kill Lilandra. This led to the murder of Summers' wife Catherine and the further abduction of their unborn child. Summers, who took up a new identity, Corsair, joined the rebel Starjammers. He sought to fight against Lilandra's empire with all his might. Lilandra grew drunk on power and obviously insane too. He planned to use the Macran crystal's power to destroy the universe. But as we know it, Lilandra sought help from Charles Xavier and the X-Men. They soon confronted Lilandra on the crystal's world, and the Phoenix averted universal devastation but left Lilandra insane beyond repair. Soon, with the help of Shiar High Council, Lilandra replaced him. She became the Majestrix with Xavier as her consort for a while. Lilandra possessed Shiar mammalian and avian characteristics. He was able to lift 1 ton and had 20 times the human endurance. Lilandra was driven by a thirst for power, which led him to sacrifice his family and the Empire to achieve his goals. He even resorted to summoning demonic beings such as the Soul Drinker. Shiar Royal Family, former family-in-law. The Shiar Empire is a widespread, intergalactic dominion. They rule 1 million worlds across the cosmos and follow an aggressive policy. The imperial government is led by the Majestor or Majestrix, with the advice from a High Council. The Shiar were originally space raiders with avian traits who encountered Earth's mutant society named Threshold. They tried to defeat the Threshold, but it resulted in a full-blown war. The Shiar got desperate to win and tried to manipulate mutant evolution using Zorian's technology. Despite their efforts, they failed badly. Afterward, the Shiar erased all records of this encounter and marked the event as the first blood spilled, the first of the 10 shames. The Shiar even secretly monitored subsequent mutant generations to safeguard their hidden history. This alien empire's technological prowess includes intergalactic warp-capable starships, teleportation systems, holographic technology, robots, artificial intelligence, cybernetics, super destroyers for planet-breaking battleships, stargates for wormhole travel, force fields, and cloaking technology. The Hecatomb, an experimental war device intended to harvest psyches from unsuspecting populations that even went rogue and became uncontrollable. Their advanced Shiar antimatter engine serves as a power source that was later utilized by the mutant nation for Cerebro. Shiar logic diamonds, mineral utensils with infinite information storage, also helped Krakoa's resurrection protocols. The Empire's imperial arsenal demonstrates both technological supremacy and a history marked by conquests and secrets. Marvelous verdict. In exploring the family tree of Professor X, we've come across some really crazy connections. Looks like Charles Xavier had family everywhere, from Earth to the end of the cosmos. This family includes everything you can imagine, from Omega-level mutants to alien tyrants. These guys aren't a regular family, but a diverse legacy of superpowered beings. The creativity in penning down a storyline like Charles Xavier's is truly commendable. There are many families and characters in the Marvel Universe, but they're not remotely as cool as this one. I'm sure you have your personal favorite Xavier family member. Do let us know in the comments about it. This episode merely scratches the surface of the list of lesser-known family bonds. If you like this one, do check out more marvelous episodes on the channel. See you in the next one! And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone!